What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another edition of the Jays for Days podcast. I'm Josh. He's Josh. We got Jays Jumpers, Jaron Jackson Jr.'s, John Morant's, Joe Johnson's, Jaw Raffs, of course. We've got Jays. We got him for days. Josh, how you doing?
So I'm just going to be proactive this year
Okay.
and say, after what happened with North Carolina, I just hope at least we can learn some kind of lesson here and not make a bunch of commentaries based on this tournament heading into next season, because the last 2 years, everybody's postseason darlings, it hasn't gone that well. I'm not even going to save my speech until the end of the tournament. I'm bringing it to the front. You can't just assume because a team plays well in February and March or March and April, they're going to be great the entire next season. That's not how this works. That's not what the tournament's supposed to be. There.
Who was 2 years ago?
UCLA?
You can't put those two teams in the same.
No, it's not the same thing.
Yeah,
No,
you can't do that.
right.
One was
UCLA
a 4
had
seed and one won
Yes.
and one missed the tournament.
Yes, UCLA had a fine season. My point was, right, maybe they're the best team in the country coming off of the first four. I very
That's
loosely
fair.
put them together. Yes, I'm not saying they're the same thing. I'm just saying
I saw
neither of
people
them lived up to
saying
expectations.
I saw people saying before this season that UNC had a chance to be like the best college basketball team ever.
Yeah.
Someone wrote that. I saw that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
That's
They
why
missed the tournament. In case you are living under a rock and in case you are one of those people who only consumes college basketball from March 10th to April 4th, I'm sure there are plenty of those people. There are people looking for North Carolina in the bracket, and there are people not finding them, and that is not a mistake. They did not, by definition, meet the requirements of an automatic bid or have one of the 36
something like that. Yeah.
36 official at-large bids, and you will not see them in the National Invitational Tournament, because if I was the preseason number one team and I missed the tournament, I would not be accepting an NIT invitation either.
Yeah.
We have 68 teams, though. Yeah. There are 68 of them. It does not include North Carolina, but
so
it
I want
does.
to get out of the way first. Now we're talking about the teams that are actually playing.
It does include teams that earn their way into the field. 64. Well, I guess it's 60. It's 60 teams total, right? 60 that are in the official first round. We'll have 8 teams go to Dayton, and we'll eventually crown a champion in Houston in about 4 weeks, 3.5 weeks time. 4 weeks, I guess. 4 weeks from today, right? Is when we'll crown a champion. Is that right?
Oh, right. It is my, yeah. That sounds right.
There you go. We'll take it. Right, 21 days from now would be the 24th. Yeah. So that. Wow. No, it wouldn't. It would be the 34th. So yeah, no. So it's 3 weeks. So it's 3 weeks. Man.
Right.
Boy, oh boy.
2 rounds. Final 4.
We're off to a great start. Off to a fantastic start. As per usual, if you've been around for a while, you've heard this podcast before. Region by region, making picks, starting with the Sweet 16. General thoughts about each of the regions. We'll pick a region winner, and then circle back at the end to the Final Four, just to kind of start everybody from the same jumping off point. The number 1 seeds in this year's tournament: Alabama in the South, Houston in the Midwest, Purdue in the East, and Kansas in the West. Let's start in the top left corner, because for some reason that always seems like the best place to start, and we'll go from there. In this region, Alabama, the number 1 seed, been right there all season. It became pretty clear pretty quickly that was one of the best teams in the sport this year, and they did not waver down the stretch. A number 1 seed for Nate Oates' Alabama squad. The number 2 seed in this region is Arizona, and we'll kind of go from there. So before we hop into Sweet 16 and going from there, any general thoughts from the South region?
Yeah, not stunned. Alabama was number 1 overall. we'll get to the part of that I have a bigger issue with, but it doesn't pertain to the South region. So you've got a couple. I guess from an 8-9 standpoint, I just don't want that West Virginia team. That's kind of, I feel like that's every 8-9 every year. I talk myself into that though, of, oh, I want no part of that team. And then, sometimes they win, sometimes they don't. But that's, you're going to get a challenge from Maryland to West Virginia. And then you've got some intriguing mid majors here. Obviously, Utah State's had a really good season. Most people thought they were a little bit closer to the bubble, but they get the 10.
Mm-hmm.
And then everybody's new favorite mid-major darling, the Fighting Pat Kelseys,
Yep.
who take care of business, win their conference tournament, get a pretty favorable matchup with San Diego State in that 5-12. That's a dangerous 12 seed. They can really score. That's a really good basketball team. And then also Furman, Ben Vanderplas hurt for Virginia. They get to the ACC tournament title game. But those two, I would not be stunned if we see a 12 or 13 seed out of this region making the Sweet 16. And then the other thing I'll just point out is you do have two high major conference tournament champions here in Alabama and Arizona. So you got two teams playing good basketball as your 1 and 2 seeds.
Yeah. I think looking around the 8-9 matchups, these are both. I think Maryland and West Virginia are two teams with not the highest of ceilings, right? If you look over in the Midwest, you have an Iowa team that like that's a dangerous matchup for a team like Houston that just isn't built on scoring the basketball. Right. Marcus Sasser not 100% with a groin injury he suffered in the AAC tournament. I haven't looked in the last 12 hours or so about what the updates are on that, but he was at least questionable going into the title game as a result. But Iowa is one of those teams that, like, on the right day, they can beat anybody in the country, including Houston. And Maryland and West Virginia are dangerous for different reasons.
Yes.
Right? I don't think there's a game in which, like, I don't see a world in which Alabama is down to either of those teams by 12 with 5 minutes left. Like, they might be down like 2.
Yep.
But there's a world in which Iowa is beating Houston by 12 at the under 4. And I'm not sure that's the case with those other two teams, but on the opposite side of the equation, Houston could beat Iowa 56-37 if Iowa's not making any shots.
Right.
And Maryland and West Virginia, I feel like their floors are pretty high. Yes, right? Dante Scott,
the high floor, low ceiling version of the 8-9 matchup. Yes.
Right. And I think anybody in the Big 12 would tell you that you do not want to play West Virginia. I mean, that's a team deep in the standings of the Big 12, but a team that is like top 20 at KenPom, and that Maryland team has high quality coaching and some players that have been around for a long time. So so that kind of jumped off there. I think if you're an Alabama fan, you're not too terribly. I mean, especially when the other 8-9 matchups are Memphis and FAU, and I don't think anybody wants any part of Memphis. I don't think they're gonna. I wouldn't bet on them to make a deep run, and I'm not sure they have anybody that can deal with Zach Edey in any type of way. If they, assuming that they beat Florida Atlantic, which is not a foregone conclusion. But then Kansas, the 9-8 down in the West is Arkansas or Illinois, and that's not. I mean, that's you getting a lottery pick in the second round. Like that's tough to have to go up against Nick Smith. That's at least something that's going to make you think. And if not, it's Terrence Shannon Jr. and Matthew Mayer. So we'll see what goes on there. But the 8-9 seed there, you mentioned Charleston and Furman. That's a cool duo of 12 and 13. Creighton and NC State, I think, is an incredibly, the 6-11 matchups in the first round are really, really good. I mean, we have a Kentucky Providence in the first round.
Bryce Hopkins game.
We have a TCU Bobby Hurley possibility in a 6-11. But that's an interesting one for sure. And then the other things I'm aggressively neutral on, and we'll watch the games because they are in the NCAA tournament. But for reasons beyond that, there's not a ton. Anything else before we make a pick?
Let's jump in.
Or 3 picks, I suppose. Okay, so on the top half of the bracket, so this is This is the group that would have an Alabama, the 8-9 matchup. San Diego State versus Charleston is the 5-12 on the top half of the South region. Virginia and Furman the 4-13. Who makes it to the Sweet 16?
I'm going chalk. I've got Alabama, Virginia. Now I do have Charleston beating San Diego State,
I did go that way as well.
but ultimately, I think this is going to be. I really want to see this Charleston Virginia game just to see what happens. Because I reached the conclusion that Charleston just hasn't seen something like this defense, even if it's not quite as good as in years past. And you just can't get yourself prepared for it in time. And Virginia is just going to win 60-57 because Charleston's going to have a bad shooting day because they're playing Virginia's defense.
Sure.
Even though Virginia's ceiling is not all that high at this point, I would feel better about Charleston's chances of going to the Sweet 16 if Virginia wasn't the team standing in their way. And then Alabama, I just don't have enough faith in either of those teams. So that's what I have in the top half of the bracket.
I think you're right. I think Virginia is high on the list of mid-majors have a hard time preparing for themselves for that. Like at the top of the list this year is Zach Edey. And
sure.
like if you happen to get Zach Edey in the second, like if Florida Atlantic gets Zach Edey in the second round, they have no idea what's about to happen. I mean, like you have high major coaches talking about how they had no idea what was actually about to happen.
No idea what to do.
Right.
Yeah.
So how in the world is Penny Hardaway or Florida Atlantic gonna know what to do? I think Virginia is just a mainstay near the top of that list. Not an elite defense this year, but still just a high major team that is really, really difficult to adjust to when you have one chance to play them in a 40-minute game and then you lose if you go home. You go home if you lose. That's a tough place to be in. So I am chalk at the top as well. I don't like number one overall seed. They walked through the SEC tournament. Like didn't sweat for a single second in the SEC tournament, and they're rolling. I'm very anti. They're rolling through the tournament, so they're going to roll through the conference tournament, so they're going to roll through the NCAA tournament. I'm very anti that, but it is the number one overall seed, and like I said, I don't think. Like I'll just have faith in their big shot makers and Brandon Miller to make buckets down the stretch if they get a close game against a tough team. But I don't see a world in which they're down, a dozen or 10 points late in that game. And if they're just, the most likely thing is that they're up by 12 to 15. But if it is close, I think they'll have the guys to get it done in a close game in the second round. So I am chalk there as well. Bottom half of the bracket. Oh, I guess we can go ahead and Alabama, Virginia. Did you say who wins that game?
I did not. I have the Crimson Tide.
Okay. As do I. All right. Bottom half of the bracket. The 6-11 here is NC State. Baylor, the 3 seed, taking on UC Santa Barbara. The Missouri and Utah State is one of those. I think that's one of those matchups that will not jump off of any casual fans page, but those following the sport closely are looking forward to that one.
That's going to be a really high energy, high scoring, fun to watch game. Yeah.
Yeah. And then Arizona gets Princeton, who beat Yale in the Ivy League championship game. That was not something that was supposed to happen. Yale, a top 80 KenPom team, I think. And like I said before we went on, Princeton won 12. So that one, a little bit of a surprise, but Princeton representing the Ivy League in this year's NCAA tournament, who makes their way to the Sweet 16.
I've got Creighton and Arizona.
Okay. All right.
I'm sticking with the Blue Jays. I've been on this all season. I like these matchups, actually, from a Baylor standpoint. If you can just disrupt those guards a little bit, and also for a Creighton team that sometimes struggles to score, I've just been scarred by what I've seen from Baylor defensively. I have a huge mental hurdle believing that that's going to change against high-level opposition here.
Yep.
And then, Creighton, Big East tournament didn't go great, but other than that, they've been playing much better. And then okay, you get your rematch with Arizona. They basically played to a tie the first time. It's difficult to beat a team twice. I know Arizona's playing very well. They're obviously a really good team. Just the existence of Ryan Kalkbrenner makes me feel better about that matchup. They've seen the Twin Towers before, so that's not going to be something new to them. And ultimately, I I just am going to continue to stick with this team until they're actually eliminated from the NCAA tournament.
I've got Creighton coming out of the top half of this bracket as well.
Oh, okay.
If it would, because it's Baylor, I don't have any faith in Baylor. I don't think. Now, granted, now they make us look silly, and those 3 guards will have
Right.
69 combined, and they'll win the game.
And they'll be in the
But
Elite Eight, yeah.
right, but I just don't like Creighton's offense is good enough to withstand like a good game from those guards, I think, and I just don't think that defense is going to let those 3 guards have what would be defined as a good game.
Yep.
I think it's far more likely that we look up in their guards kind of are in like we went 13 of 31 from the field combined kind of thing, and they'll score plenty of points and they'll get to the free throw line, but like that efficiency won't be good enough. That's kind of where I'm coming from in that Creighton Baylor matchup. I wanted to pick Missouri in the Arizona Missouri game. I wanted to, but I like Missouri is just not good enough defensively for me to look myself in the mirror and actually pick them to win. It would be fun. I think that's another game that's going to be incredibly high scoring. Those are 2 top 10 offenses at KenPom, but Arizona's defense isn't great either, but it's definitely the better of the 2. And I think Arizona is also just the better basketball team, but high tempo Arizona team, 2 great offenses. And it would be really fun if the final score of that game was like 90-86. But I think ultimately Tommy Lloyd's team gets it done. And then I'll just keep on rolling. So I also have Creighton in Arizona there. I am with a team that is so dependent on the efficiency of their interior guys in Arizona. Now, I say that for a team that's top 15 in 3-point shooting in the country. I understand that, but I think we would all agree that the foundation and the nucleus of that offense is Umar Ballo and Azulis Tabelis in the interior. And when you have Ryan Kalkbrenner, I feel pretty good about that. And that combination with Creighton's guards and the fact that I think Baylor Shireman's going to have a moment in this tournament at some point, and all of those things, I'll pick the Blue Jays to make it to the Elite Eight.
I got the same Elite Eight then.
Gosh, this is so boring. Alabama, Creighton, who you got?
Alabama. Alabama has a big guy for Kalkbrenner. I don't like this one for Creighton at all. Those guards are going to get smothered by all of Alabama's length. To me, this is the game where Creighton scores 52 points and loses, 70-52.
And to me, this is the game that I have to pick at some point for Alabama to not shoot the ball well, and this is going to be the game.
Wow.
And if they don't shoot the ball well here, then like if they don't shoot the ball combined with the way that Creighton plays defense, then they might really have a stinker here. There have been games throughout the season that I thought, Alabama, no way that they lose that one, right? No way that they do that, right? Oklahoma, 76th ranked offense, 45th ranked defense, and they beat this Crimson Tide team by 25. And Creighton is far better than that. So this is where my thing all year with being nervous about Alabama's shooting, this is where it comes to fruition. I'm so mad. Everybody in this bracket should be mad that Creighton is the 6th seed in this bracket, by the way. I didn't say that at the beginning, but everybody in this bracket should be mad about that. But right, top 15 defense, top 30 offense, and like I said, I've been on it all year that at some point Like, can Alabama win the game that they shoot poorly in this tournament? Like, that's going to be the question, because it might only be one that they need to
Right.
get through. And if it's Creighton, I don't think they get through it. So I'm doing a little bit of predicting that it'll happen at the right time against the right team against Creighton, because anybody else in this bracket, like if it happens in the 8-9 game, I still think they can win that game.
Yeah. Yep.
But I think Creighton is good enough that if it happens against Creighton, that it'll be a real issue. So I did not think that on March 13th, after your season and your love affair with Creighton, that I'd be the one picking Creighton to go to the Final Four. But I can't exactly blame you for picking the Tide. But I think like they're going to stumble at some point, and if they pick against the wrong team, then I think it's going to be an issue. So I've got Creighton in the Final Four.
And that's interesting for this bracket in particular, because your 2 and your 3 seed are both very offensively lopsided.
Mm-hmm.
To that point of whoever's coming, that elite, or yes, the Elite Eight game theoretically is going to be a real challenge for Alabama in that sense, because I think you and I are both very confident it's going to be one of those 3 teams. And all 3 of them, right, if you can't hit your shots against Baylor or Arizona, they're probably just going to score, 75 to 80 points, because that's what they do.
Mm-hmm.
So that is one of the bigger hurdles Alabama's going to have to get through, because they should be fine to that point. I don't think Virginia can't score enough points. The 8-9 can't score enough points, but the bottom of that bracket has some real offensive firepower.
All right, new game that I'm springing on you right this second. You have to pick a seed that's deeper than the 6th seed to win this region. Which one would you pick?
Ooh. Give me Missouri's offense.
Okay. I think that's fair. I'll go with Maryland.
Okay.
12-12 team. There are stretches this year where they looked really, really good, especially earlier in the season. I'll go with Maryland. Good coaching, and they have guys that are offensively gifted enough that I think they have the right 3-week stretch that they could possibly piece something together. But so I'll pick Maryland. Alrighty, we'll go sideways across the bracket to the Midwest. Number 1 seed here is Houston. We talked briefly about the 8-9 matchup, but that's Iowa and Auburn there. Your 2 seed in the Midwest is a Texas team that will get the toothpaste in the first round. Xavier is your 3, and the Indiana Hoosiers, the fighting Mike Woodsons, the battling Trace Jackson Davises, the jockeying Jalen Hood Shafinos are the number 4 seed in the Midwest. Thoughts before we hop in to our Sweet 16s?
Texas A&M just needs to start scheduling better in non-conference, apparently, because evidently whatever they do in the SEC just isn't enough. They were definitively the second best team in the conference, and just ended up a 7th seed. They were that was one of the most surprising things in the bracket to me. And then, yeah, the other thing that stood out to me immediately when I saw this 8-9 was, well, you get Iowa on the wrong day, or you get Auburn on the wrong day for kind of different reasons, but still those guards. You could be in real trouble if you're Houston, especially if, right, we don't know exactly what the situation with Marcus Sasser is. I'm operating under the assumption that Marcus Sasser could have played that game, and that because it was the AAC Tournament Championship, that just paled in comparison to obviously what's next. There was no way he was ever going to play, because there was just no need. That game wasn't going to hurt you. And so I'm operating under the assumption that he is not 100%, obviously, but fine. And is going to be there.
And another 4 days would even further solidify that.
Right. So that's the big question here. But I also had the exact same thought about Iowa, which is, well, you never know what you're going to get from them, but you get them on the wrong day, you're in big trouble if you're Houston.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah, I don't have a ton here. I'd be like the biggest thing is Texas A&M. Like, not only did they get a 7 seed, they got Penn State
Yeah, that too.
in the 10. Like, that really kind of blows as well. That's a Penn State team that will be the darling of the, oh my gosh, they had a great conference tournament. Let's pick them to go to the Sweet 16 and upset Texas. Don't mess with Texas. And but if nothing else, I think Mike Shrewsbury and that team. I mean, like, you've got a guy in Jalen Pickett that can absolutely be the best player on that floor. You've got dangerous 3-point shooters. You've got guys that seem to always be in their bag for that Penn State team, and that run to the Big Ten final will make them they're sitting there in the 10 seed batting their eyelashes at everybody, and there will be plenty of people who take the bait. The other thing I'll throw out here is that Iowa State getting Mississippi State or Pitt, specifically getting Pitt, I think would be really, really fun. That's a good Pitt team, and a Pitt team that not all that long ago was not supposed to be an 11 seed, just barely making it into the tournament. And I think that would be a tough matchup there for Iowa State if they're able to get through Mississippi State in Dayton. Okay, top half of the bracket here. Houston is the 1 seed. You got that Iowa-Auburn 8-9 matchup. Miami versus Drake in the 5-12. And then Kent State will take on the Indiana Hoosiers, who makes it to the Sweet 16.
I'm going chalk again, Indiana, Houston. I do have Drake beating Miami. Always go to bat for the Drake Bulldogs.
Okay.
I ultimately, Houston's going to have enough. They're going to frustrate Iowa. And Indiana, I'm just not scared of anybody in that vicinity. Indiana is better than all of them for the questions we have about the Hoosiers. I see some potential roadblocks, but I don't see any that I think are going to be too problematic. That's the way I'll put it for those two teams. So I've got the 1 and 4 seeds going through.
Yeah. Me too. Houston is just like you said. I think it's a good observation that Marcus Sasser probably able to play that game if he absolutely needed to play that game. And so now we'll be pushing a week since he has played basketball by the time we get to, Thursday or Friday. Do we know when these games are yet?
Yes.
Is it on Thursday or Friday? Do you know?
I don't know off the top of my head, but the schedule and the times are out.
Okay. Well, maybe I'll look here in a second. But and if that's the case, they're just better than all of these teams. And Indiana should beat all of those other teams. I think there's part of me that's like, Joshua, you idiot. There's only one Big 10 team here that has, like, why are you picking the Big 10 team? Don't pick the Big 10 team. But Trace Jackson Davis gives Indiana such a high floor, and specifically, and is a guy that I think Indiana, and watch, they'll lose now, but I think Indiana is relatively upset proof in the first round. I just don't think, like, Zach Edey is high on that list, Virginia is high on that list, and I don't think Kent State really understands how good Trace Jackson Davis is.
Sure.
Like, they'll learn pretty quick, but he'll kind of, like, it feels like he'll stumble his way to 22-9. Like, it's impressive. I mean, we watched him do it in the second half against, who was that we were watching them play? Maryland? Was it Maryland we were watching them play? Right, because Penn State beat Indiana. Am I remembering that correctly?
Yes.
And he, not a great, like, not an elite first half, and then he was just all over the place in the second half, and really, really, really spectacular player. And I just kind of think Indiana is the type of team that Miami doesn't want to play. They're tough.
Yep.
Jalen Hood-Schifino, I think, that's the type of backcourt Jalen Hood-Schifino can have a good game against. Nigel Pack and Isaiah Wong, not exactly known for their defensive prowess, and they're tough-nosed in the interior. So I'll go with Indiana in that potential 5-4 matchup there to get chalk heading into the Sweet 16. Houston versus Indiana, who gets it?
Houston. This is where
go Cougars.
Indiana's ceiling just not quite high enough to deal with everything that Houston team's going to throw at them.
Okay, bottom half of the bracket. I've got Houston as well. Bottom half of the bracket. Yeah, because I'm not picking Indiana to go to the Elite Eight. I don't feel great about picking them to go to the Sweet 16. In the bottom half of the bracket, Iowa State takes on the winner of Mississippi State and Pitt and Dayton. Xavier gets Kennesaw State, Texas A&M, Penn State. We've talked about in Texas. Them Pearly Whites are going to look so good after they beat the brakes off of Colgate in the first round. Who gets to the Sweet 16 in the bottom half of the Midwest?
The Big 12 teams.
The Big 12 teams?
The Big 12 teams. There is nobody that scares me if I'm Texas. I would love to see that matchup with Penn State. Big fan of that game. Don't like Penn State chances of winning it, but big fan of that game. And here's my theory. This is one of those things that's probably just going to be wrong, but I can logically talk myself into it. That Xavier team just sometimes has stinkers for one of the best offensive teams in the country, right? It's never that their offense is bad. Their offense is either good, really good, or atrocious. Iowa State's the kind of team that can give Xavier an atrocious offensive game. At which point, Xavier's defense is bad enough that Iowa State can score the points they need to win. That's how I'm justifying that one. And then Iowa State's going to play Texas again, and I don't like the upsets in the conference, third, fourth meeting of the season kind of thing. Texas is the better team. Give me the Longhorns.
This is the first place that I go off the beaten path with my picks. I'm out on Iowa State's ability to score enough points. I'm just out. They're going to lose to Pitt in the first round of this tournament. And then Pitt is going to go on to beat Xavier because Xavier's going to have that stinker in the second round. And then Pitt is going to go all the way to the Sweet 16, where they will run into a superior in every way Texas team, and Texas will go to the Elite Eight.
So we have the same path. We just have a different opinion on who wins the first round game.
Yes. Yeah, I don't know, like we just kind of went from, and maybe we were never really there. I mean, we were there until like January 10th, and then pretty consistently Iowa State didn't score enough points to beat the other team. Mostly because the other team scored more points, but also because Iowa State made it easier for the other team to score more points than them because they didn't do a great job scoring enough points. I don't put a ton of stock into them beating Baylor twice in a 5-day span just because and Pitt's defense isn't spectacular, but somewhere I got to go different. I'm very anti this, but I have a either Iowa State's going to win this game. Maybe I should just pick Xavier. Maybe I should stop thinking so hard, but it's so boring to go chalk all the time. But I also just kind of think there's yes, it's a Big 12 team. Yes, Iowa State would be better pretty much anywhere else. Not pretty much. They would be better anywhere else from a record standpoint. But you know what? I talked myself out of it. I still think Iowa State's going to lose in the first round. I will hold on to that. But I'm going to pick Xavier. Stop that, Joshua. Xavier will beat whatever offensive minded team that they play in the first round. And they'll play Texas in the Sweet 16, but then they will run into a superior team in the Longhorns. So we get to the same place either way: Texas and Houston in the Elite Eight.
All right.
Who's your winner?
Texas.
That's my winner too. I'm scared of Texas if I'm Houston.
100%.
Maybe scared's not the right word, but I'm concerned about Texas.
That is the kind of game that Houston has consistently lost in the NCAA tournament, right? This is the other reason I'm more than happy to just kind of throw Houston into the Elite Eight. They don't lose games they're not supposed to.
Generally.
But then they go up against the teams that have the ability to play with them player for player. And that is where they have not lost every time, but have struggled. And they've, right, Elite Eights, Final Fours, that kind of thing. Texas is that kind of team. And until Houston can actually win those last couple games to get themselves to a championship, I'll take the Big 12 team that's playing quite well right now.
I'd just like to go on the record saying that I don't have any doubts about Houston's abilities to win NCAA tournament games, regardless of where they are. Maybe once we get to the Final Four, but like I just like to go on record that hi, hello. I don't have any qualms about that, Sir Sampson. Just Sir Sasser. But I think you're right. I think generally you're right. That at some point Houston runs into a team that you can argue on paper is supposed to beat them, and that's typically where if they're going to fall short, and they have by definition in every tournament, anytime recently, right? And under Kelvin Sampson, that's when they fall short. Is when they come into a team that like falling short is of course a relative term against the number 2 seed and a Texas team that there will be plenty of people would argue is just better than Houston. So falling short just by the definition that 67 teams in this tournament are going to by definition fall short. But it happening in the Elite Eight is nothing to be upset about. But I would agree that I think that's where they will quote unquote fall short.
Right. I don't even intend it as some kind of backhanded compliment. They do such a good job winning the games they're supposed to and they're so good. The question is, can they win a national championship? Right. Mm-hmm. Most teams were not having this conversation about, so you don't have to have a discussion about whether an Elite Eight, a Final Four is a disappointment because it's not. But that's the level Houston has gotten to. And so it's the highest compliment that we're having a different conversation. And that's all I'm thinking about when I'm thinking about Houston.
I would like to just point out, just for fun, that Houston and Memphis are deadlocked in their point differential this year across their 3 games. I just like to point that out. Shouts to the Memphis Tigers, and we'll get to them in a bracket here in just a moment. But so we've both got Texas. So just to recap, so far out of the East, we Josh has Alabama in the Final Four. I have Creighton, and we both have Texas coming out of the Midwest. All right, let's go to the East. Let's go to the bottom left corner of the bracket. This is the Purdue bracket. Marquette, congratulations. One of the best seasons in program history. Shaka Smart, all hail. Big East regular season champs. So on. Big East Conference tournament champs. Like, congratulations, you get Vermont in the first round as the 15 seed. Congratulations. I don't actually expect them to lose that game, but that is a 15 seed that like they will think about way harder than any other team is. Like you think Ohio State thought about Oral Roberts as much as Marquette's going to think about Vermont? No shot. The 8-9 is Memphis and FAU. We got a Kentucky Providence in the 6-11. Plenty to talk about here. I feel like Michigan State and USC just like play this kind of 7-10 every year at this point.
Oh yeah.
I mean, this is a very Michigan State and USC like first round.
Yep.
And it'll be like one of these teams is going to have to lose, and both of these teams have coaches that are like infield in particular, and then like there are some people who are like, Tom Izzo is like low-key washed in March at this point. And so like there will be some sort of like sweeping declaration about one of those coaches, whoever loses that game. Because both of those coaches are kind of right. You had a USC team that got to the Elite Eight. They get to the Elite Eight with that Evelyn Mobley team. Mm-hmm. I think Gonzaga is who they ran into that year in the Elite Eight. But one of the, it's Andy Enfield, or it's Tom Izzo. There he goes again. Supposedly the guy, it's, January, February, Izzo, April. Stop it. That is silly, by the way. That one is silly. You can't one championship in 20 years. We can't be talking about. We can't be replacing March with the name.
And that's
Izzo.
why it's March, not April.
Yeah, fair enough. It's not like his March performance has blown me out of the water either. Anyways,
no, but the amount of Final Fours that they got to in that stretch was pretty remarkable.
I suppose if you're really excited about semifinals, that's the be my guest.
Why it's March, not April. They didn't win the April games; they won the ones in March.
I suppose. Either way, the point being is that both of these teams are unbelievably uninspiring, in my opinion, and one of them will have a coach that there will be a narrative pushed about them, regardless of who loses. What say you about the rest of this bracket?
There are some very interesting teams in here. I think this is the most intriguing one for me. And from a matchup, I want to save the matchups for later. But right, you got a Marquette team that's never been in this position before. You got a Kansas State team as your 3 seed that's never been in this position before. You got Kentucky there as your 6, playing much better. Also, not inspiring a lot of confidence that they're headed to the Final Four or anything like that. And then you got Duke, who's just steamrolling the ACC at this point. You got Tennessee, who nobody thinks is even going to get out of the first round at this point. You got an interesting Memphis team, an interesting FAU team, and then Purdue, who always is going to, speaking of commentaries on coaches, every single season is a referendum on Matt Painter. This is just a fascinating bracket to me.
Fascinating bracket with a lot of, let's get through the first round with the right winners. That would be what I say.
Sure.
TBH. Like Kentucky, Providence, I'm intrigued by, but I also think like lots of people are going to talk themselves into Louisiana, and then I just kind of think Tennessee is going to win that game.
I'm picking Tennessee for that very reason.
The Memphis FAU game is super interesting, but like this could be either like the world is falling apart, or we have a bunch of like for some you need to go further than others for the world to not be falling apart. You know what I mean? Like if Kansas State gets to the round of 32 and then loses to Kentucky or something, like the world's not falling apart. But if like Kentucky loses in the first round, then it's like, oh my gosh, Calipari, oh my gosh, where what's going on there? I mean, I feel like poor Matt Painter's probably got to win this region for it to not be the skies falling for Matt Painter.
Oh yeah.
Which is unfortunate.
Yep.
But perhaps this year, the first time it's actually reasonable to expect to have those expectations for Purdue. And a Purdue team that was not ranked in the top 25, by the way. I mean, we'll forget that if Purdue loses before the Final Four. Yep. But just an FYI, that's not a team that was supposed to be all that good.
Did you see what Zach Edey tweeted?
No, what did he tweet?
I think what I saw was he quote tweeted some, the school's tweet or somebody's tweet about them winning the conference tournament and the regular season championship. Uh-huh. He said, "Rebuilding year."
Yep. He's so fun. He's so like his trash talk is exactly what I would expect from Zach Edey. You know what I mean? Yes. And like you never question for a single second like that he's just a decent dude, but he also is very, very well aware of how people talk about Purdue and what Purdue was supposed to be, and he's not about to let anybody forget that he understands.
Right.
So that's incredibly fun. Okay, top half of the bracket: Purdue, Memphis, and I will say real quick, I'm upset that I didn't make Kendrick Davis my Dante DiVincenzo Award winner. I feel like that's a swing and a miss on my part. He had 31 in the title game. This is my former first team All-America guy who I still think had a season that would have been worthy of it if he was just kind of on a better team. And that was the fundamental flaw with my pick way back before the season started, that Memphis would need to be really, really special to like they needed to be Houston basically to have a guy be a first team All-America or have him, average 28, and that probably wasn't going to happen. Memphis plays Florida Atlantic. This is the Duke Oral Roberts 5-12, Tennessee and Louisiana, the Ragin' Cajuns. Who makes it to the Sweet 16?
Purdue and Duke.
Duke.
I was coming into the tournament ready to pick Oral Roberts, considering getting over Oral Roberts to the Sweet 16 again. And then their name came up to Duke, and that was the end of that.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get Tennessee, theoretically, in the second round. A Tennessee team, again, without Zakai Ziegler. There might not be a team that I am more confident reaches the Sweet 16 than Duke. In the entire
Stop saying stuff like that out loud. Now they're going to lose to Oral Roberts. Thanks, Josh. Or Josh has some secret bracket that he actually thinks has a chance to like be competitive in the bracket challenge, and that one has Oral Roberts on it. So he came onto this podcast and said silly things like Duke is going to walk to the Sweet 16. Are you crazy? I was going to pick Duke to go to the Sweet 16. I don't know if I'm going to do that anymore. I might just foil you. I might just foil the heck out of you now. I might just take Oral Roberts, and now your Oral Roberts to the Sweet 16 pick is a wash. You're not getting any bonus points for that.
Maybe it was a double.
Maybe we double reverse psychology.
Yeah.
Is double reverse psychology kind of like not? Is it multiplying?
I think it's more like not. Oh. The idea being I wanted you to freak out about Duke, so my secret bracket actually has Duke winning the national championship.
Yeah. I have Duke going in Sweet 16 too. Purdue and Duke, who wins?
Duke.
Wow.
Here's where the matchup thing gets really. I feel bad for Purdue because I was just sitting there looking at this going, well, who better to guard Zach Edey than the 2 7-footers who are headed to the NBA?
I mean, one of those 2 7-footers, Cal Filipowski, is not. I mean, like, just because he's 7 feet tall, I guess he's high up on the list. But like, it's Derek Lively that you're actually like, okay, that's probably number 1 on the list.
Correct.
Of guys most equipped to guard Zach Edey. That's a fun game. How have we not played that game? How have we not played the starting 5 of the all guard Zach Edey team? Yeah,
Lively's certainly on it.
Filipowski might be on it too, just because he's 7 feet.
Right. Not that
I can't think of a ton of other guys that I like have any faith in.
I think Bediako falls into that category. We did talk about that a little bit.
Perhaps.
That's part of this, right? I'm with you that Filipowski is not exactly built to handle that, but then again, nobody is. It's going to be Lively's assignment. But if you're gonna, that's about as good as it's going to get. And then of course you have this Duke team that's playing really well and kind of figuring out who they are. They're finally healthy. Their record when actually healthy is really, really good, which is the other reason to me, this is not just about the ACC tournament. This is about what this team has done all season when all the pieces are there. And then the other thing I'll throw out here as we get to the bottom of this bracket, if Purdue gets past this game and Marquette gets to the Elite Eight, all I could think about when I was watching the Big Ten tournament was, if I am Shaka Smart, we're bringing chaos back in that game. Full court press, 48 minutes. Purdue,
48 minutes? Nice. Where'd you get the other 8?
They're gonna play the other 8. That's correct.
Yeah,
that's how hard Marquette's gonna press. They're gonna press for 48 minutes in 40 minutes. Figure that out. Thank you. 40 minutes. Sorry. I don't care that they don't do it anymore. I don't care that they don't practice it all that much. You have got to. Somebody is going to look at this and just go, we're going to press Purdue because they don't know what they're doing. It is stunning. And you and I were talking about this weekend. And then they almost blew the Penn State game for the exact same reason.
Right.
And
I don't understand.
Shaka's team is ready to do that.
I don't understand why you don't do it for, like, why doesn't anybody just do it for the whole second half? Like, I get, like, maybe if you're a team that doesn't want to do it for 40 minutes.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Like, I get it. But, like, you can't tell me at this point in the season that your guys aren't in the shape to play press for 20 straight minutes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, like I don't, like, I'm a little surprised that nobody has done that yet. Because, like, it's a little like, you know, you watch a team on, and I get there's a balance. Like it's like a team that actually makes the aggressive moves at the end of a soccer game. And so they actually get good looks on, like, on the goal when, like, they haven't gotten anything for the first 88 minutes of the match.
Why weren't
and, like,
you doing
I get
that?
Right,
Yeah.
I get there's a balance, and I get that, like, it's all officially, hey, we have to score a goal now, screw whatever's happening on the other end of the field. Like, I get it, but, like, sometimes it's just like, okay, if you just, like, kind of mixed in, like, 25% of that aggression, maybe you got a better look sometime before the 88-minute mark. And I kind of feel like that with the Purdue, because they look like they've never seen a press before every time they get pressed. Yep. And you and I were talking about it, that, you know, it's like they've tried to be so calculated with breaking it that they forget to just use common sense, right? Like maybe you're supposed to go to the corner to catch the inbound pass, but also like if there's plenty of space like right there in the middle, just like pass it to him right there in the middle.
And
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 you're supposed to look for the pass back because that
yep.
guy's helpful. But like if there's nobody between you and the half court line, just dribble it across half court. Like
Or at least
like
check to make sure,
right.
because that's what happened in the Penn State game. That bucket that really allowed Penn State to get back and actually make it very interesting at the end was right. I think it was Ethan Morton caught the inbounds pass in the corner and then sent
Mhm.
it back to the inbounder. No, Ethan Morton was the inbounder. I don't remember who caught the pass, but they passed it back to Ethan Morton, if I remember correctly, and it got cut off because Penn State had blitzed
Uh-huh.
to stop that pass from coming. And so he threw the pass, and the pass went. I don't remember if it was Pickett or somebody else, but it went right to a Penn State player. And
Mhm.
then they passed it and got the bucket.
It got picked off.
Maybe I don't remember if it was him or not, but exactly. There's it's almost like there's a plan to break the press, and if that plan doesn't actually work, there is no way to adjust. So yeah, if I'm Shaka, it's havoc time. And the other part of this,
like go ahead.
what's the easiest way to stop Zach Edey? Stop him from getting the ball.
Yeah.
That too.
Yeah, and maybe it's not even like every second of like the game,
Yeah.
but it's like, you know what, coming out of the under 16 of the first half, we're just gonna press until the under 12.
Right.
And like and that's even more effective maybe in the under 16 of the second half, because then you get Painter to like burn a timeout, and then late in the game he doesn't have that timeout to burn because they can't get the ball in again, or Braden Smith catches it and stands in the corner at 5'10 again, and then they have one less timeout to work with. I can't believe you just talked me out of Purdue. I can't believe it. But I'm rocking with Matt Painter. I'm doing it. I've been. It's a point of pride at this point. Everybody acts like they have an affection for Matt Painter, and then it gets time to put the pedal to the metal and to put the chalk on the chalkboard and put the name in the bracket. Nobody does it, and I'm here for you, Matt Painter. I'm here for you. I'm your security blanket. I will continue to believe in you. And I just think that like we've been watching teams that have gotten to play Zach Edey twice for the last like 3 weeks.
Fair point. If
And like we talk about how Purdue can't break the press, but like what do they keep doing with 3 minutes left in the game? They keep being up by 12, right? Like they keep being in the situation where like, yeah, they look atrocious against the press, but still find a way to win because they're just better for the first 35 minutes of the game. And I think there's something to be said for a bunch of teams that haven't played Zach Edey yet. I think there's something to be said for that. And maybe I'm just wrong, and maybe it'll be Memphis and all of their athletes who press the entire game. And Purdue, has a round of 32 exit. But it's not going to be me who predicts it. It's not going to be me who predicts it.
I would have Purdue in the Elite Eight and possibly the Final Four if Duke wasn't that team in their side of the bracket.
Fair.
To me, it's not about lack of confidence in Purdue as much as it is Duke is the kind of team that can beat Purdue, and we're not going to get 4 1 seeds in the Final Four. Because I'm with you. This is nothing about Matt Painter. I want no part of that Duke team that somehow ended up as a 5 seed, not a 4 seed. Not that it would have made a difference because you would have had to play them in the Sweet 16 anyway. But this Duke thing is real. This is not just playing good basketball for a few weeks heading into the tournament.
And the Purdue thing is real, and it's been real for longer than Duke's has been real. So I'm not going to be the team. I'm not going to be the person to pick against Matt Painter, because I'm going to be on the team that picked Matt Painter to go to the Final Four when he went to the Final Four. So Purdue's going to the Final Four in my bracket. There's a golf media member who says like Rory McIlroy might at one point win the Masters, but I'm not going to be one of the people who predicts him to do it. Like he's just said, I'm out on predicting that Rory McIlroy will win a Masters, regardless of how good he looks heading into it. This is the opposite here for me. When Matt Painter makes it to a Final Four, I will have picked him to go to the Final Four. So here we are. I'm picking Purdue to go to the Final Four.
And I have Marquette.
You have to have Marquette.
Yes,
there's
I have
no way you don't
Marquette
have
beating
Marquette.
Kansas State and then Marquette beating Duke to go to the Final Four.
Fair enough. That would be so fun. That team is so fun to watch. All right.
I am sad we're not going to. We would need to get to the national championship game to get Jalen Pickett and Tyler Kolk in the same game. That is very sad.
Yep. Alrighty. In the West, Kansas is the number 1 seed, UCLA the 2. What say you about this bracket?
What in the world is the committee's problem with Kansas? That's what I have to say. Not only did they put Kansas as the number 3 seed, taking them out of the Midwest region, which is a huge deal for a Houston team that got destroyed by a 8 seed in the conference tournament championship game. The explanation given on the selection show, unless I missed something, was basically, which is possible, I was so angry I wasn't paying super close attention, admittedly, was basically, look, Marcus Sasser didn't play, and they've been very consistent this season. They don't get blown out. I would hope not. You're playing in the ACC. Sorry, not ACC. I would hope that Temple doesn't blow you out, you know. And yes, they played Alabama close. They played Virginia, obviously beat Virginia. Houston's very good. We don't need to go over that again. Nowhere in there was, and talking about, okay, so Bill Self not being there for the Big 12 tournament, that got taken into consideration. Nowhere in that conversation, unless I missed something, was there conversation about Kevin McCullough. Kevin McCullough didn't play in that Texas game. Kevin McCullough is not only one of Kansas's most important players. Kevin McCullough is not only their best perimeter defender. He's also one of the 7-8 players they actually use.
Mm-hmm.
Not having him is a big deal, and not having a body is a big deal, because then what happened? You went back to Kansas where nobody is scoring, and Jalen Wilson scores an empty 30 and they lose.
Mm-hmm.
So they didn't get any kind of grace for that. But for some reason, it's okay for Houston to get blown out by Memphis after, they nearly lost to him twice already. I've got no issue saying Kansas isn't the number 1 overall seed. How they're not 2, I don't know, and it is a big deal because that took them out of their home region. I got no explanation for it. And then, not only that, what's your reward? Oh, just 2 teams that could make it to the Elite 8 in your 8-9 matchup. To me, tough. The biggest loser in this bracket, hands down, is Kansas. That's your reward for having the most quad 1 wins in the country and winning the best conference in the country. Congratulations.
Yeah, that's tough. I mean, yeah. Okay, I agree with that. I agree with all you just said. Can I retweet it? Is that okay?
Sure.
Can I just hit the retweet button? Fantastic. I'm gonna keep a buck with you. I don't especially care what Kansas' road is. Don't especially care. I think they're gonna make it through whatever their road is. You can throw whatever you want to at them. Just do it. Do whatever you want. I don't even care, Josh.
What happens if I throw Purdue in there?
Just stop that. That's not a moral dilemma I have to come in contact with right now. Stop it.
That is
correct. Stop it. Okay, let's get into some picks here. Some picks. Top of the bracket, Kansas. They get a gauntlet game against Howard in the first round. Arkansas and Illinois, the 8-9. St. Mary's and VCU, the 5-12. UConn and the Fighting Rick Pitino's his last chance to resume build before he hops ship to go somewhere, but it's definitely not Iona.
And he's probably getting a early start on the Big East prep for next season.
Yeah, you're probably right. Yeah. Man, Rick Pitino in the Big East. What a slate of coaches the Big East is putting together. What say you about the top half?
Kansas, UConn?
Who gets to the Sweet 16? Yeah, I feel like that's just the right answer, right?
Look, if Arkansas somehow gets out of those first 2 games, 100% can make it to the Elite 8, can make it to the Final Four. I'm just to a point where they haven't done enough for me to go out there and say they're going to beat Kansas.
Yeah. And I was really excited to be all high on them going after the SEC tournament. And I just
Yeah, exactly. And then UConn is just simply better than the other teams in that quadrant. So give me the Huskies.
Yeah, I went very like, let's go Nick Smith, let's go Nick Smith. Trivia time. How many more shots did he take than points in their quarterfinal loss to Texas A&M?
5.
4. He was 6 of 20 for 16 points
Yeah, that's tough.
with a 4 to 5 assist to turnover ratio. That's tough. It's tough. Shouts to my boy RC4, who I'm a little salty is coming off the bench and is now just like 1 of 7 and playing 19 minutes. I feel like that's a little bit disrespectful. Just a little bit.
And it's not working.
Yeah. I'm a little upset about it. But yes, I think that UConn and Kansas make it to the Sweet 16. Who goes to the Elite 8?
Kansas.
Okay. That's also the right answer.
I really tried to talk myself into UConn. Couldn't do it.
No, you didn't. Stop it.
I tried.
No, you didn't.
I tried.
Did you try to talk yourself into him just because you hate Kansas and all that they stand for? Like if that was just any other team that's clearly the best team in this bracket, would you have tried to talk yourself into him?
With UConn that you watch them and you just go, my goodness, that's a Final Four team, and then they just
do you still watch them and see and think that? I'm not sure.
I did it last year too.
Fair. Okay.
They're just so right. I mean, you got the size on the interior. You've got Jordan Hawkins. They are so long, so physical, so athletic. They just. That's why I picked them to win the Big East tournament, and then they went toe-to-toe with Marquette, and they lost. Now, they very well may have won it had they beaten Marquette, but they didn't. So I've cooled on them enough where I couldn't rationalize going deeper than the Sweet 16 where they're supposed to be. And yes, it's still Kansas, and Kansas is just better at winning NCAA tournament games than most teams. Because, by the way, Dan Hurley needs to win some this season. They are one of the teams that not that they need to go to the Elite 8 or anything, but at some point this needs to translate to success in March.
I mean, isn't this year one of them actually having an advantageous positioning?
They were a 5 seed last year, weren't they?
Were they? I don't remember that.
They lost in the first round in New Mexico State.
All right, then never mind. I also just didn't think last year's team was that good, so I kind of I didn't really. I don't have a special memory of that. Talk about what a fall from grace from New Mexico State. Can we talk about that for a second?
Mm-hmm.
They went from beating UConn in the first round of the NCAA tournament to just having their program just all systems grinding to a screeching halt.
Mm-hmm.
Jeez. Yeah, okay. I agree with that more than I thought I did. But I also, we're still, what is this, year 4 of Hurley? Year 4?
Something
year
like
5?
that.
Year 5 of Hurley. But definitely year 2 of advantageous NCAA tournaments positions. Yes. They were the 7 seed in the first round. They have not, I don't think he's won a game in the tournament yet, though.
There you go.
I think that is correct. Yes, because they did not make the tournament years 1 and 2. And they had a first round exit as a 7 seed to 10 seed Maryland that year. A Maryland team that was better than that's a 17 and 14 team that was a 35. That was 35th at KenPom. Eric Ayala, Darren Marcel, a young Dante Scott, young Dante Scott, Aaron Wiggins.
Yep,
that was a good basketball team. All right, fine. Okay, but I've got Kansas going on that side of the bracket as well. Okay, bottom half, TCU gets the winner of Arizona State. Talking about the other Bobby Hurley. Arizona State, the other Bobby Hurley, the other Hurley. There's only one Bobby Hurley. Thank you, Joshua. Kansas, Gonzaga, and Grand Canyon. That's a fun one.
Yeah.
Northwestern and Boise State in the 7-10. Talking about a Boise State team that I've probably thought about twice all season. They're just plotting away, winning the tournament. There we go. UCLA and UNC Asheville. Let's see. Not just about that 2-15 matchup, the entire bottom half of the bracket.
Let me give you 5 minutes on UNC Asheville.
Don't. I will turn off your microphone. I have the power. I will turn it off.
I got Gonzaga, UCLA. I am very sad about this Jalen Clark injury. Now, they haven't ruled him out. The school hasn't ruled him out. Everybody else is saying he's not playing.
Uh-huh.
But as far as I know, at least heading into the end of the Pac-12 tournament, he was done for the tournament, but they had not ruled him out for the NCAA tournament. That's a big deal. Again, there are injuries at the top of these brackets for some of the title favorites that are really interesting that you don't usually have these kind of conversations. Whether it's Kevin McCullough, Marcus Sasser, Jalen Clark, you can go down the list. Mm-hmm. So I hope he's healthy, just because they were fine without him. They're not the same team. And as much as I love TCU, Gonzaga is rolling. It's happening. So that's my Sweet 16 matchup there.
Yeah, that's where I end up as well. There's a small part of me that thinks that this is just the year for Gonzaga. Just a small part of me. I feel like for this, that very much in the not a ton of reason why, other than nobody expects them to.
Exactly.
Which just kind of feels like we're gonna look up. It's like, oh right, Drew Timme, still a college basketball player, right? Forgot about that. And that they just kind of sneak their way. You know, I expect them to be in the Elite Eight. I think Gonzaga is going to beat UCLA in the Sweet 16 and set up a Kansas-Gonzaga matchup in the Elite Eight because of the unfortunate circumstances that UCLA finds themselves in. I also think it just is they haven't announced it yet because like they don't have to announce it yet. Right. I mean, like at some point it's going to be like, yeah, that guy's not playing in a game and that guy's not playing in another game and he's not getting any better. And then he just will have not played in the NCAA tournament. But at this point, why? Like you might as well keep your opponent guessing when it comes to game planning. So yeah. I don't think it's much more than that.
No, I don't. Yeah, I don't either. I'm operating under the assumption that Adam Bona is going to be back and Jalen Clark is not going to play. That's my guess. Yeah. That game is the one though that I would really, especially if Clark somehow is able to play. But even if he's not, that's one of them I look at and go, that would be a lot of fun to get that rematch.
Yep. All right. Do you have Gonzaga in Kansas?
Yep.
Who you got?
Gonzaga.
My boy. I'm picking Kansas.
This is where, they don't have the size to deal with Drew Timme. This is where if Kevin McCullough is injured / not 100%, if they have a bad game from the supporting cast, and also Gonzaga can just drop 90 on you, as we've talked about before. There's something. I'm all in on this theory that nobody's paying attention to Gonzaga, so this is the season.
8 at KenPom, the number 1 offense in the country. They haven't lost since February 4th. Absolute gauntlet, 2-game West Coast Conference tournament. Just a gauntlet. Just absolute gauntlet. They beat San Francisco by 11. They beat the brakes off of St. Mary's. 77-51. I like that. I'm a bigger fan of your pick than I am mine. But I've kind of planted my flag in this Kansas most in best position team to repeat in a minute. And so I feel like I have to stick with that. So I've got Kansas in the Final Four.
All right.
An hour and 8 minutes later, here's our Final Four. Creighton, my Final Four. Creighton and Purdue on the left side of the Final Four. Texas and Kansas in. Can we just get 4? Can we get 4 Big 12 teams into this? We could get Baylor from the east, from the south. Excuse me.
Texas, Kansas.
And then, is there anybody in the East? No. There's not a single Big 12 team in the East. How does that happen?
No, there is. Kansas State.
Oh, you're right. I don't think Kansas State is making it. Never mind. I can't get them there.
The answer to your question is yes.
I can't get them there. Sorry. I also don't think Baylor's getting there, so screw it. So we could go Texas, Kansas on one side of the bracket and Baylor and Kansas State on the other side.
Yep.
Wait, we didn't play our game. Back to the Midwest.
Oh, jeez.
A team greater than a 6 seed that you'll pick to go to the Final Four.
Greater than a 6 seed.
Man, slim pickings in this slim pickings over here.
Texas A&M. just disrespected. That team is better than a 7 seed.
Yeah, I think that's probably the correct answer. You don't think the Fighting Fran McCaffreys will just shoot like 50% from three for 3 straight games?
Consideration too.
Shoot.
Yeah.
I would be so mad. I might stop watching college basketball if that bracket lets Iowa get to the Final Four. Lock it in. I don't need no Fighting Fran McCaffreys in the Final Four. I think that's probably the right answer. Okay, in the West, greater than a 6 seed. Talk to me.
Are we skipping the East?
Oh, right. I forgot we went to the bottom left corner first. East, go ahead.
Do not feel good about this one at all. I'll go Providence. But on the Providence,
the Friars.
Ed Cooley let me down. Maybe he'll pull off a miracle.
I'll go Memphis.
Okay, fair enough.
That Memphis has like an elite duo. Like DeAndre Williams and Kendrick Davis had like 97 combined in their semifinal game. It wasn't actually 97, but it was like 97% of their team's points for a while. And Kendrick Davis can be the best player on literally any floor in the country, except maybe one or two floors that he can't be. But also, those floors just might be because Zach Edey is 7'4" more than anything else, which is unfortunate when your second round matchup is likely against Purdue.
Yeah,
that's unfortunate. But if I was asked to pick one, I'd probably go with Memphis. All right, last the West. Give me one.
If you want 2 out of the entire bracket for me, Arkansas and Illinois, 100%. Don't think about it.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. All righty. In the Final Four, however, my lowest seed is a 6 seed in Creighton. I believe Josh's is a 2.
3.
Is that correct? 3. Who got in for you?
Gonzaga.
Oh, Gonzaga. Right. So Josh's Final Four is the Tide versus the Fighting Shaka Smarts, and then Texas versus Mark Few and the Gonzaga Bulldogs. All right, left side of the bracket, your Final Four starts with a matchup against Alabama and Marquette. Who is going to the national championship game? Alabama, the Tide. I can't believe that you were like talking about the Tide shooting all year with me. You were right there, and now you're picking the Tide to go to the Final Four. Unbelievable. I don't exactly blame you though.
This matchup in particular, Alabama's just better at most of the things than Marquette. As good as Marquette are at the things.
At the things.
At the things. And, the size, the athleticism, they're also just quite possibly the best team in the country.
Picking the best team in the country to go to the national championship game? It's a little weird. It's a little weird of you, I'm not going to lie. All right, you got coming out of the left side of the bracket, the Alabama, the Crimson Tide. My matchup here is Creighton and Purdue. Let's go, Matt Painter. Ryan Kalkbrenner's on that list. The first team all guard Zach Edey. Ryan Kalkbrenner's probably on that list too. But it doesn't matter. The Fighting Matt Painters to the Final Four, to the national championship game, and all you Matt Painter haters. Here's what I like. I have a buddy who every time he gets a haircut, he puts it on a Snapchat story and says, "If you and I weren't talking before I got this haircut, I don't want to hear from you now." He's like, the idea of like, I look so fly now, but like if you and I weren't talking before I got this haircut, I don't want to hear from you now. If you weren't riding with Matt Painter when they go to the Final Four and they go to the national championship game, I don't want to hear from you. You're not allowed to say anything.
Now,
not necessarily you.
Okay, I was going to say, what is riding me? Because I'm 100% behind Matt Painter.
Not necessarily you, but like you're allowed to say things like I'm not sure you're allowed to be on. I'm not sure you're allowed to be a part of that party. I'm not sure you are. There's like a party in like a couple weeks with like friends and family that you can be a part of.
Okay.
Once Matt Painter goes to the Final Four, but like the after party, you're not allowed to go to that one.
That's fair enough.
Okay. All right. The friends and family, like the grandmothers are invited. It's like a breakfast buffet.
To be nice, to invite everybody.
Right. At 9:00 on a Saturday morning, like you can come to that one. But the Rager post Final Four on Monday night, that is not a family friendly environment, and you're not invited. Come on, Matt Painter. Come on, Zach Edey. I'm channeling good decision making from Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer. Fletcher Lawyer is going to catch fire. We're going to get the like mid Big Ten play Fletcher Lawyer, big shot Bob. Like we're going to if they make it to the Final Four, Fletcher Lawyer is going to hit a buzzer beater at some point. That is going to happen. Like if I could parlay those two things, I would. And then so I've got Purdue because I'm going to be there when Matt Painter goes to the Final Four. I'm going to be there, and I'm going to rock with it this year. I'm going to rock with it, lean with it, and rock with it. Other side of the bracket: Texas, Kansas for me, Texas, Gonzaga for you. What say you?
Texas.
The Longhorns
ran them out of the building in the state of Texas once. They can do it again.
Wow, how long have you been holding on to that one?
I kind of realized once I started talking through what I was going to do here, I went, "Oh, we've seen this game before. Now, is it going to be closer than the first time? Yes. Am I worried about that rematch if I'm Texas? No."
Alrighty, man, he's been holding on. He wrote that down. He wrote that down last night. He can't convince me otherwise. He's had that locked and loaded. What did? So I forgot how much I enjoy Nance, Raftery, and
Grant Hill.
And Grant Hill. That's just super fun. And they were calling games in the Big Ten tournament, and I can't remember what game they were calling. And Raftery said something, and Nance was like, "How long you?" He's like, "You had that one locked and loaded. You got to get out of the way quick." And I can't. I might have to look and see if I can figure out what it was because I. Yeah. I can't remember what it was. I can't remember. Anyways, you've got the fighting. Shoot, who even plays on that team? The fighting Marcus Cars. There you go. The fighting Therese Hunters. Whoever plays on that team. I don't know. They're not that important to me. Speaking of fighting Texas Longhorns, did you see Courtney Ramey's shot in the Pac-12 championship game?
Mm-hmm.
That was lit. He had I don't think he had scored yet. I don't think he had a field goal.
I was watching that first half going, Courtney Ramey is doing absolutely nothing, but there he is.
Yeah. And then he hit the biggest shot of probably Arizona's season up until this point. I mean, that suggests that there was a ton riding on that game. There probably wasn't, but anywho.
Got him a championship.
So that goes. So I've got Purdue and Kansas. Oh yeah, I didn't make my pick. Kansas. There you go. The fighting Bill Selfs, the fighting Grady Dix. So I've got Purdue and Kansas in the national championship game. You've got Texas and the Tide. Did you just go with the teams that had was New Mexico State just on the outside looking into? I mean, you got Texas and Chris Beard, you got Alabama and all the crap that went on over there. Were you just the teams that spent the most time with lawyers this year? That's the teams that I want in the national championship.
And then Mark Few and Marquette is the other two.
Yeah, okay. With New Mexico State just barely missing out in the Elite Eight, right?
I mean,
is it too soon for that? Might be too soon for that.
Yeah, too soon.
I think it's too soon for that. Okay, Texas and Alabama. Talk to me.
Texas.
Okay.
Home. You're closer to home. This is where, again, one of those teams that if Alabama doesn't shoot the ball well, they can absolutely hurt you. They can defend to the level that will force Alabama to not shoot the ball well. Hopefully Timmy Allen is back. But they didn't miss him all that much even when he wasn't playing.
Right.
And they are deep enough where that one injury, going back to this whole, availability thing with some of these key players on national title favorites, they have the depth to overcome an injury like that. Now, do they have a depth to overcome an injury to a guard? Maybe not. But we're not talking about that.
Sure.
You were on this from the very beginning of the season. I jumped on this a little bit later. I don't know if you completely went away from it. They are just one of the most well-balanced teams in the country that I feel really good about their ceiling on both ends of the floor. They are playing really well. They just handled Kansas twice. I don't want them seeing Kansas a third time. That would terrify me. That's about the only reason I wouldn't pick them to win the national championship at this point is if they drew Kansas in the Final Four. In all honesty, they're the real deal. And in a world where I'm not as high on Alabama as I think most people are. Probably higher than you.
Definitely higher than me.
But it's not like I look at them and go, well, I got to put that team in the Final Four. I did, but I didn't feel obligated to. It was more of a matchup thing. And Texas is a team where I just feel like they don't have bad matchups because they can kind of blend into whatever they need to be. And they have the guards to make it happen.
Fair. All right, so you've got the Longhorns.
Yep.
I can't. All right. I'm going to be there when Matt Painter wins a national championship, Josh. I'm going to be there. I'm going to be there. And if Purdue makes it to Kansas, Kansas doesn't have anybody to stop Zach Edey. He'll have 30 and 20 in that game. He'll have 30 and 20 in that game. It'll be lit.
The question will be whether Purdue has anybody to stop Jalen Wilson. Maybe Ethan Morton can bother him just enough.
But Purdue, like Zach Edey will have 30 and 20 on 12 shots because they'll go to the free throw line 12 times too. And it might take Jalen Wilson 22 to get 30.
Sure. Yeah. I actually do feel pretty good about that matchup if I'm Purdue.
I'm on the coattails of Matt Painter. I'm on the coattails of Zach Edey. And I am going to be there when Matt Painter wins the national championship. I will wear, like, if they lose in like the round of 32, I will bring a clown mask to the next podcast and I'll just wear it for you the entire time. Or maybe I'll just, like, with my name down here on the podcast recording platform, I'll just put a little clown next to it. I'll get something. I don't know how you feel about clowns, so I don't want to scare you.
I'm not scared by clowns.
Okay, all right, cool. Wouldn't blame you. Clowns are weird. Clowns are scary.
No. If
I
you
might
went
be scared of
too
clowns.
far with a clown get up, that would,
like, if I'm looking like Joker-esque.
Yeah, we don't need that.
And we're not talking about Jokic. We're not talking about Jokic. No. I'll start the podcast. We've got Jays, Jumpers, Jaren Jackson Jr.'s, John Morant's, Joe Johnson's, Ja Raff's, and jokes like Josh. And I'll have a clown, something or another. But if they win the national championship, I will start the podcast with "We Are the Champions." Because me, Matt Painter, and Zach Edey, we're the champions. Okay?
That's the trio?
That's the Braden Smith, Fletcher Laura, you can come, it'll be fun, like, it'll be great. But, like, let's not pretend that you're at the main table, okay? Me, Zach Edey, Matt Painter, lock it in. The cool thing they do with Bluetooth and the lights pre-game where, like, they control everybody's phone flashlight, it's lit. That's the core four. Everybody else is kind of like I'm going to be there when Matt Painter wins the national championship. I'm going to be there. Maybe not there, but I'll be there. They'll be able to feel me.
Be there in spirit.
In the air. In the spirit. We need to stop podcasting. Give me the fighting Matt Painters. Give me the fighting Zach Edeys. Give me the boys. And they'll lose in the second round, and I'll just have to sit here sad every time we do a podcast because my national champion is already out. But I'm in there. I'm in there, dog. You got anything else?
I think we've gone long enough. Let's do this.
All right. The last thing you have to give me is you have to pick anybody deeper than a 6 seed to win the national championship.
Arkansas.
I feel like that's the right answer. It's either Arkansas or, I don't know.
Illinois would be 2 for me.
Illinois. If we're including 6 seeds, that opens things up a little bit. If we're including 6 seeds, then, like, Creighton is in there for sure. Kentucky is in there. What's the 6? TCU with Mike Miles. Miles could have.
I love these 6 seeds. I really do.
Unfortunately, they all, like, eventually run into. For what it's worth, I had Kentucky going to the Sweet 16. I don't think I actually said that, but I think they're going to beat Kansas State. Alrighty, let's get out of here. Today's Monday. We got the play-in games tomorrow. First rounds on Thursday and Friday. It's that time of the year, and thank you very much for going through another regular season with us here on the Jays for Days podcast. We'll be back, I guess, Monday. Are we doing that? Like, I mean, it would be silly to do
we
a
gotta come up
podcast
with
on.
a full plan. Yeah.
Yeah. We'll see. Yeah, we'll have to chit chat about that, but likely not Thursday. We'll go with that for now. Please subscribe to the Jays for Days podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. Follow us on Twitter at Jays for Days Pod, YouTube, all of those fun things. And we'll be back at some point in the next 7 days. Perhaps it's Monday. That seems the most logical, but who knows? Who knows? We'll see. Thank you so much for listening to this edition of the Jays for Days podcast. I'm Josh. He's Josh. And we will see you later.